Hey everybody, welcome back to Ideally. I am your host, Alec Ogg, and if you don't know, this podcast is made for creatives with ADHD who are ready to shake off that sense of underachievement and grow into their full potential. That's what I struggle with the most, and so I want to help y'all with it as well. We're going to do this by learning more about personal development and entrepreneurship together so that you can go from saying, well, ideally I'd have that lifestyle I want, to actually living it and feeling successful about yourself. My guest today has a very interesting story. His name is Taylor Somerville, and he owns a company called Symmetry. And he started out working in the investment world for 15 years in this very high-stress environment. And after putting in a lot of hours, he went through a divorce, and he was so stressed out and had so much anxiety that he needed a way out, and he discovered breathwork. And it's helped him so much that he started a whole company around it, and now he empowers others through these breathwork techniques. Someone who has publicly sung his praises is one of my favorite authors, Liz Gilbert. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and one of my favorite books, Big Magic. And she said, I discovered Taylor Somerville's work on the Insight Timer meditation app, and he has swiftly become my favorite teacher. I use his guided meditations every single day, and I'm continually delighted by the degree of both relaxation and power that I feel after the sessions. Taylor has a wonderfully kind manner, such that even in the most intense breathing challenges, you can always sense that a caring person is helping you through it. I would recommend his offerings to anybody who wants to embark upon an in-depth journey into the miracle and mystery of breath. So, with that resounding introduction, I will now start the interview. So I hope y'all enjoy it and stay tuned to the end because we do a breathing exercise at the very end. All right, Taylor, thank you so much for coming into the studio today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Alec.
All right, I know a little bit about you because you were in here recording a podcast. How long ago was that?
March of this past year.
So sometime this year, and I was so impressed by your story. So can you tell the audience a little bit about who you are and how you got into the health and wellness field?
So my name's Taylor Somerville. I own a company here in Memphis called Symmetry. But before I started that company, I spent 15 years in the investment world. From financial advising to the last 11 of that, I was working on a trading floor at a commodity trading company here, working on interest rates, macroeconomic analysis, equity futures, stuff like that. Really kind of a support role for traders, analysts, and did a lot of our work with our chief economist. And I left that maybe four years ago and started out on my own. When I left, I was not exactly sure what I wanted to do, but I knew I was just ready for a change. I also went through a divorce about 7-8 years ago, and that kind of started me down a different path where I was already having a lot of stress from the professional world that I was in, very high stress environment. You're on a trading floor all day long, 10 hours a day, whatever. In front of a lot of computer screens, just really trying to deal with the ups and flows of the geopolitical world. So dealt with a lot of stress, anxiety. I would say I was a little bit of a guy who kind of fly off the handle, didn't handle situations necessarily the best. And after going through the divorce, figured I needed to find some tools that would help me better. Started with mindfulness meditation. Realized how much that began to help me just kind of find a little bit of stillness and space. Then I ventured out. I heard Laird Hamilton, who's a big wave surfer, Gabby Reese, professional volleyball player, his wife, actress, model. Heard them talking on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and they were talking about all the breath work they were doing. They were talking about saunas and ice baths and these intense pool workouts with weights and the water. And just listening to them speak about their life, I decided that I wanted to go meet them. And they were putting on these experiences with about 20 people who I would say consider like type A kind of high-performing people from, pro athletes, doctors, lawyers, financial people from all over the world come into Malibu. They really kind of teach you and introduce you to their lifestyle, not only the protocols of breathing and the ice baths and all that, but nutrition, mindset, have people come in and speak on different topics as well. And just getting there, I'd started doing a lot of techniques on my own, but it's different than getting in front of a lot of people and doing it together. And you also kind of realize, well, there's this whole group of people out here who are also really just kind of looking to become the best that they can be. So I remember they put us through like a 45-minute breath session, and I was just blown away by the feeling it put me through just by that. Then getting into an ice bath, sauna, everybody around is pretty scared who's never done it before. But after the first round, you notice everybody just loosens up, gets in the sauna, you open up, start talking, things just, you bond and connect with these people. And so from there, I was already planning on leaving my job and just kind of put together a plan on how I could get out. And I was gone 4 or 5 months later. Then they started a coaching program certification. I was one of the first coaches involved with that. Then I went up, got some other certifications, became a master coach with them, and decided to stay in Memphis and begin to bring these techniques to people. I knew that how stressed I was, how tough it was for me to handle a lot of the stuff, that there were other people around who could use these tools, and they were simple, and it's stuff that we all have inside. Most of us in the Western world weren't taught it. I would say now in the past year with COVID coming back, it has changed, and people are really starting to find out the importance of breathing. There's also been some great books coming out about it. Pretty much every major research institution is doing research, not only on improving your stress, but just your body's ability to handle life and how much it affects every system in your body, from your cardiovascular system, digestive system. So you're really getting a lot of research on tools that have been around for thousands of years. So I now incorporate those with one-on-one clients here. I have about half my clients in Memphis, about half spread around the country. Also do virtual classes and do some in-person stuff as well. We do virtual breath classes, but then run heat and ice sessions. And we're probably finished with the pool workouts. It's starting to get a little chilly, but I think I had a last pool workout this past weekend. But still doing all that stuff around town.
How long was the program in Malibu?
It was like a 3-day kind of, you think of it like a retreat experience.
3 days?
Yeah, that we were out there.
And about how many people were there?
There were about 20.
Okay.
And I've gone to a couple of them since they've had to do them in Hawaii as well. Been down and trained there, and then multiple just trainings with other coaches who were going through the same programs, going out there and trained as well.
Was it cool meeting people and being like, these are my people?
Yeah, still in touch with a good bit of them today. Had one guy calling me this morning. A couple of other ones have also become coaches, similar paths as me, about the same age. We're doing something else, commercial real estate, and decided, hey, this is kind of a stuff I want to bring in and start incorporating. So, seen very other similar attributes as well.
So what did it feel like when you did those first few breathing exercises for the first time?
Well, when I first started doing them by myself, I kind of, when I ventured from mindfulness meditation, it's probably Wim Hof. So these very fast-paced breathing patterns, and then you go into this extended long breath hold. And what I realized was that, okay, all I did was breathe, and the next thing I know, I'm in like this deep meditative state, very calming sense of peace. Realized I also just held my breath for 2.5, 3 minutes. Didn't really think that was possible, and it just kind of blew my mind on how just small little changes in my breathing patterns could change the way I would feel. And then as I dove deeper into it, just realizing, okay, how I change my way I breathe throughout the day makes me a little calmer as the day goes on. And it just really shifted my perspective on, needing external things to do that as opposed to something that's internal. And giving you not only the ability to regulate what's going on with your system, but to read it and watch it before it begins to snowball out of control, those anxious, worrying thoughts, having a tool that you can just use in the moment to stop and turn that around and take a little bit more control over it.
I saw one of your breathing exercises pop up on social media between the last time I saw you and now, and it was something about sort of like panting like a puppy dog.
Yeah, that's fire breathing. Yeah,
and I did it a couple times. I was like, that's amazing how much that helps. So,
and that's a little technique to give you a little boost of energy. So we have multiple spectrums of things to slow you down, things to calm you down, but also things that activate you, get you ready. You need a little boost of energy instead of reaching for an extra cup of coffee in the afternoon. do a few minutes of breathing, give you a little boost, and get you ready to go. And that's kind of what that one is.
Cool. Yeah. Maybe you can explain it briefly at the end of the interview for people. So stick around, you guys. We'll give you that at the end. So you kind of take that entrepreneurial leap moment into bringing those practices to Memphis. And I feel like it's kind of cool having these, you would almost think of them as West Coast type practices to a Southern financial guy in Memphis. It's kind of like a fish out of water topic, but I bet that makes it all the more accessible to people that it's coming through you. And so what was that like, kind of owning that new identity?
Yeah, that is very true. And that's, when I got done, one of the things I was trying to figure out was, do I want to stay in Memphis? Do I want to try to move out there? Well, my girlfriend was here, who's now my wife. So, obviously wanted to stay and be close to her. And then I just started also looking at it and being like, well, I already know a lot of people here, got a client base. And like you're saying, it's kind of taken it from, I don't come off as someone who is woo-woo necessarily, even though I love that aspect of it. It's about changing and reframing the language. So, you look at a lot of the stuff, a lot of the techniques are used by, special warfare, tactical groups, SEALs, stuff like that. Guys who are, you wouldn't think of that either, but they're using these same techniques to help control their mind for intense, stressful situations. And these same things you can use in a business setting before you go into a meeting to calm yourself down. Or if you're having trouble sleeping at night, using it in those settings. So kind of reframing of, not necessarily a lot of the techniques are yoga techniques as well, changing the name on some of those. So they are, not the Sanskrit. It is English, very much easier for people to follow and, kind of just letting people experience it. So worked a lot with just close friends, family at first, kind of figuring out how people would respond to it, and then took it to groups that I was already involved with, gyms where I was working out, and started implementing it there.
And did you feel like you were kind of tapping into a higher purpose and more fulfillment when you landed in this?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So when you were early on starting this company, did you sort of vision set what you wanted it to look like, or was it just kind of one foot in front of the other at the beginning?
I did some, vision boarding techniques like that. I'd also had a coach at the time, a business coach who helped me, for one, come up with the name Symmetry. We kind of worked together. Also, kind of my original tagline was changing your relationship with stress. Helped me build a lot of that, build where if I was going to be a, mobile or looking at it as going into brick and mortar, I went mobile. I'm still mobile and virtual at this stage, which is the way I pretty much plan to keep it. And, so I did a lot of that working with a coach, working with somebody who could help me build that aspect into it and help me, kind of gave me the tools to vision it out.
Yeah. And how did you find that coach?
Through a guy so I started a newsletter before I quit my job that was all about mindset, habit building. I've always been somewhat of an aggregator of information, read a lot, taken a lot in, podcasts, articles, and I would just send stuff to my friends in general. So I decided, all right, I'm going to start a newsletter. And the guy whose newsletter I'd been reading, his name was Kahee. He got a thing called Rad Reads. He worked at Blackstone. It was kind of the same trajectory that I was, and started this newsletter. It was one of his coaches, and we had talked a good bit at the beginning, and so I found her through him.
Okay, very cool. Are you comfortable sharing the name of your coach?
Her name is Kate Beckinsale, and it was 5 Stepping Stones. She doesn't really do the coaching anymore, I don't believe.
Okay, cool.
But I used her for a while. I mean, probably about 6 months at that point.
I had mentioned that my business coach had really helped my trajectory in life. And so if you're listening, look into coaching because it can really help just sort of show you all the things you're missing. You don't really see they're right in front of you.
That's right. And help you, just figure out little tweaks, little ways. Coaches working with a lot of different people there, and they can help. Even coaches need coaches, in my opinion. So I always like to have somebody that I can work with and bounce things off of. As well.
Definitely cool. What did your vision board look like at the time?
A lot of junk.
A lot of stuff. What does that mean?
It was a lot of stuff. I'm trying to think of what it kind of said on it. I think there was a guy surfing. There was people having fun. There was a couple of quotes about resiliency and hardiness, and doing uncomfortable things. It was. I'm trying to think what else was on there.
And was it like cutout stuff?
It was like cutout. So basically,
Cool.
I'd used 4 random magazines and just flipped through, and like anything that caught my eye, I was told to cut it out and put it on there.
Yeah.
Exact type of vision board.
Yeah, I feel like doing vision boards was a lot easier when magazines were more popular. Now I only have one Rolling Stone magazine, so everything's going to be somewhat music slanted on this vision board.
It's more difficult now.
Yeah. I think it's cool to hear that fun, uncomfortable aspect was there, because I feel like that comes through in what you do.
Yeah, no, so, I've always I'd say I'm kind of a recovering perfectionist at this point, that type A. So it was like, am I doing this right? Well, there was actually no right or wrong. It was just put it out there and see what the universe brings to you.
Yeah, very cool. So you mentioned your newsletter had to do with habits. I don't know, at one point in my life, I just got on the habit train and got obsessed with it. So I always get excited around people that have little rituals and habits and routines. Like I've read Atomic Habits and The Power of Habit.
Great
and
one.
All those. And so I was curious if you have intentional habits and what they are.
Yeah, I do. And that's something I work with all of my one-on-one clients, is building habits and routines. It doesn't have to be super structured, but just having something you can fall back on. And one of the things I like to think about, my client a few months ago, she always pushed back against the discipline and the habits. And with working with her, she's like, I can't believe I always just pushed away this stuff. Now it's like road rules. It's not like I have to follow them exactly every day, but it just gives me, when things get a little haywire, a little crazy, I know I've got a place that I can come back to, like a point of control and center that I can center myself and use. So I like breathing in the morning. I'm doing some type of breathing exercise. Hydrating first thing, hydrate before you stimulate. I like to journal. Now, I'd say my journaling now is probably a lot less than it used to be. It's much smaller, where it's just kind of like a gratitude and planning. And then sometimes I'll get maybe once a week, write a little deeper, but it's just, having a place to get my thoughts out from my head onto some paper. I also like to move, get some mobility, and get some early morning sunlight in. 15 minutes, 10 minutes outside, that's one of the best things you can do for your health. Being able to go to sleep at night, getting your circadian rhythm set is really by getting that sun early in the morning. So I've taken the dogs for a walk, 10 to 15 minutes. So I have just a little morning routine like that. And then at night, I like to try to put the cell phone, no TV in the bedroom, try to get the cell phone, all that stuff turned off about an hour before we're going to bed. And that's kind of my main one at night, is just trying to get electronics cut off.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is. It is tough, but it's my wife's good about it too, and we don't have TV. We don't have a TV in our bedroom, so that helps. And better to do things like read and just something to down regulate. So I have if I can get the phone off for an hour before, I think it helps a lot. Helps most people who have struggled to go to sleep as well.
Definitely.
Just we have so much stimulus in this world, and we need to turn it off and put it away.
Do you typically wake up at the same time every day?
During the week, I'm waking up at 5 o'clock every day.
Okay.
Weekend, a little later.
And did that come out of just how you naturally are, or was that an intentional early bird thing?
Somewhat of my career. I mean, when I was in the investment world, I had to be up, bright and early. I was at the office at 6-something a.m. So at that point, I was getting up a lot of times at 4 a.m. and I would sometimes work out, do some exercise, but it was usually straight into the emails, what was going on across the world, and really into all the information coming in, which now I really get people, don't do that first thing in the morning. You lose control of everything when you allow your phone to come at you. You allow emails and all that to take control. That's why I like, just give yourself 5 minutes at least, 5 minutes of a breathing exercise, 5 minutes walking outside before you jump into all that. Don't ever let the phone be the first thing you pop up and and scroll through right when you get up.
I'm realizing how many things I internalized from the last time you were in here interviewing, because a lot of these things, like the hydrate before you stimulate, that really stuck with me. So now I chug a bunch of water before my coffee. That's been great. I also have been doing the sunlight thing with my walk the dogs. And yeah, the no phone first thing in the morning, because boy, when I like accidentally slip up on that and I'll like check Twitter or Instagram or something, I realize that it totally sinks my mentality into some kind of surface level thing that I don't even like. And I'm like, ooh, wow, I did not mean to go there. It's like, it feels like a dirty space once you're used to not being in that, you know?
Well, and then you realize how hard it is to get away. Then
Yeah.
you find yourself back all day long checking those things.
Yeah.
Where if you at least put it off for the first hour and, create a little time, all right, I'm going to check it at whatever, 7 a.m., give myself 15, 20 minutes there. I can go through, check everything, and create a little structure and spacing out of that way instead of just jumping into it. Because if you just let it control you, it's going to control you.
Have you ever read The Miracle Morning book?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. It's a cool book by this guy named Hal Elrod, but
Okay.
he basically at one point in his life looked up like what all the most successful people do as habits. So it's purposeful silence, and then affirmations, visioning, exercise, journaling, reading, and yeah, I think there's 6 of them. And he was like, what if I just tried to compress that down into like an hour every morning? And I've kind of done that structure for about a month and found it really helpful, because I realized that whole thing about willpower being a non-renewable resource, and how if you try to kind of do things throughout the day, just stuff comes up and you're like, well, I don't really want to try to squeeze my journaling in between dinner and going to bed, because then it starts taking time away from your relationships almost. Whereas it seems like time in the very earliest of morning doesn't really feel like you're stealing time from anyone else.
That's a good way to put it.
Responsibilities. And yeah, I found that same thing of just waking up a little bit earlier and just knocking out those habits is just a total game changer. And that we often use that excuse of like, well, I can't get up much earlier and I don't have time to do that. It's like, well, you can compress these things down to really lower the bar to where you do them. Because I think I probably had like a C or a D rating in how often I was doing all my habits I wanted to do. And then once I compressed them into about an hour and a half and was doing them just in the morning, it's like A+, like I never miss them. And I really enjoy it. And it's sort of like waking up for Christmas,
You get it all done. And you don't, none of it has to be long. It can be just 1 minute of breathing, just, giving yourself, make it as small as possible so it is easy to do. Maybe writing one thing you're grateful for. I like the affirmations as well. I used to read something every morning. Now I tend to listen to a podcast while I'm cooking breakfast, something like that. So, make it while you're, kind of incorporating into other areas as well. And I use a lot of that with the habits. The way I teach people to begin breathing practices is, using those as like true transitions through your day. So you don't have to lay down 15 minutes and do some long thing. But after every meeting, stop, just connect into your breath. When you're in your car, going from home to the office or office to home, use that time to just check in, see how you're feeling, monitor your breathing, slow it down, come back to those little transitions is a great way to incorporate all those habits as well, too. In
your journaling, does that look like you're doing like a page, or is it just like a paragraph on a page? What is your notebook like?
It's usually... So I also like to schedule stuff out. If I feel like if you don't schedule out your day, somebody else is going to. And being an entrepreneur and the way I can set my schedule, so it makes it easy. So I typically do that. That's kind of like the night before. My wife and I both do the same thing. So we kind of make our list or schedule. We'll spend, 15, 20 minutes at night. We both knock that out. And then the next day I'll come in and I usually write down, okay, what are the 3 things that I must do today that's going to make it a good day. Then I'll have a couple affirmations, some type of gratitude sayings as well. And then I might write something else if it comes up. Nowadays, that's all I end up writing. So usually about a page a day, and then as the day goes on, I kind of have it to use to throw out any thoughts, ideas, list. Big on making lists. So I kind of have incorporated all through my day to write out. And I have multiple little journals as well too.
Cool.
For different areas of stuff that I'm doing.
When you're touching on affirmations and stuff like that, how does that usually look? How does that come out for you?
Well, I say them and I write them out in the second person. So you are, then I like to sit there and pause and take a breath and feel it.
Yeah.
And then move on. And I only like 3 to 5 things. I don't think it's overwhelming to have anything more than that. So I try to keep all of my stuff to about 3 to 5.
One thing I've found helpful, which was sort of a 1-2 punch of that Miracle Morning book and then Tim Ferriss exercise from the 4-Hour Workweek. But the Miracle Morning, he always talks about how a lot of affirmations, people think of them as super flowery and woo-woo, like, money in abundance is flowing to me all the time and stuff. And it's sort of like people hear that and it's hard to connect to. And it's like, well, money isn't flowing to me right now, so that doesn't feel
How
right.
does that work? Yeah.
And so he says, it's much better to just kind of use positive verbs like I'm committed to blank and I choose to blank and I can blank. And then Tim Ferriss's book, in terms of, have you read the 4-Hour Workweek?
It's been a long, long time.
Okay, but he kind of has this idea of dreamlining in there where goal setting was always kind of elusive to me. Like, I knew I could accomplish things, but the idea of like, what do I want my actual goal to be was hard. And then he kind of rephrased it as like, write down 10 things that would be exciting if they were happening in 6 months, And somehow following that excitement idea resonated more than anything else. And and he's like, kind of, right, 5 things you're excited you're doing in 6 months, 5 things you're excited that you're being in 6 months, and all these kind of ways to reframe it, and then kind of look at that list and then just boil it down to like 4 things you're going to focus on.
Yeah.
And cut those down into what can I do now? What's one thing I can do tomorrow, etc. And so I think if you can home in on what you're excited about and then convert those few things to affirmations, really has that compounding effect of like, well, I'm committed to getting this podcast going again, and it helps.
I like that.
I don't know where I was going with that, but all right. So we kind of touched on coaches. You said maybe you're getting into a mastermind soon?
Yeah. So I just signed up for its group. It's called the Coalition, and it's, Brett Bartholomew, he wrote this book, Conscious Coaching. His website's called The Art of Coaching. It's very much about communication, but they've got a small, like 10-person mastermind that's like 6 months long, meet every couple of weeks, and then they do a big retreat in the middle of it. I've talked to a couple of people who've gone through it, really liked it. So I'd been, one of the things on my list to do had been, okay, need to get a coach, kind of help me figure out exactly where I want to take everything. And so in the last couple of weeks, I signed up for that, start doing it in November.
Very cool. So
we'll see where
so that's coming up in just a month or so.
It'll start in November.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I had my mastermind call today, which I developed, I guess, about a year ago, and they're so helpful.
Yeah.
To just...
How many people are in the mastermind?
There's 4 of us total.
Okay.
So it's a very small group,
Yeah.
but it's all podcast producers from like all over the country, kind of all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know what it is. It's super helpful. It's like a great way to start the week.
Yeah, I can see that. And, I've never done it with other people. All the coaching I've kind of done has been one-on-one, so I wanted something a little different where, you have an accountability partner, and so they pair you up with somebody, and it's, people who for anywhere from strength and conditioning coaches in the group to authors to executives. There's a little bit of everything in there. So not only having people to kind of help you and be there for accountability, but I think it's also great networking and meeting new people that you might not run into.
And if you do get around people that are sort of on the same path as you, it's really interesting kind of seeing how you're similar to them and then how you're different to them, and being like, we're all doing the same thing, kind of aiming for the same thing, but you suddenly see that there's a million trajectories you can take just within this narrow field, and that you're so different from the other people doing the exact same thing you're doing.
And there's, and that will resonate with different types of people too. And that's why there's enough to go around.
There's always enough to go around. Yeah. this kind of plays off of the idea of like these coaches, mentors, masterminds, kind of being around people and your life changing by association with people. But do you think you'd be where you are right now if you hadn't bought that ticket to go to Malibu?
No, I think that was a big piece.
Yeah.
To be, to put me and give me the courage to take the steps. And then, that was kind of a major trajectory change.
Yeah.
Also introducing me to people who I saw were similar and wanting kind of the same things. And then luckily I had a lot of support here that didn't push me away from going after that, which is something I expected when I was about to tell people, hey, I'm going to quit my job, something I've been doing for a long time. I thought most people were going to think I was crazy, which they might have in silence.
But they were pretty supportive.
Yeah.
Good.
For the most part.
Was it scary buying that ticket and going, or did it just kind of feel right?
It was a little scary because I'd never gone out on something like that by myself.
Yeah.
I'd say it was my first like solo trip kind of thing. So there was a little bit of scariness into it, but it was also exciting. And once I was there, it was awesome.
And once you were in there, did you feel like, I think I know my life is going to change, or was it more gradual?
No, I knew.
You knew?
Yeah, I knew. I mean, I came home and got the ice baths, got started, making friends and family, jump into ice and get in the pool and do these crazy workouts. So I pretty much started that like the second I got home.
Okay, cool.
So I knew I wasn't going to be in the investment world for too much longer.
Because I feel like I can trace a lot of trajectory shifts in my life to going to conferences or things like that, where you sort of just realize like, oh, these are my people. And like you'll hear some talk and it'll just be like, oh, like that guy gets it. She is doing exactly what I wanted to do, but didn't know I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I think it's just important for people out there to hear that you really can have life-changing experiences if you show up and
taking a little action.
Yeah, take a little action.
And those things that are scary, you kind of need to move towards them. I mean, I did a lot of, even before I quit, I did one of my favorite exercises. I got it from Tim Ferriss, that fear setting, kind of going through and writing down and the absolute worst things that could happen. You basically end up homeless and nobody loving you anymore, and then realizing, well, that's probably not true. And there's a lot of ways I can jump back on my feet if it doesn't work out. So
yeah, fear setting is really eye-opening sometimes on how absurd we think a lot of choices are irreversible, but
most things aren't. Well, and then the stories we build in our heads, once you get it out on paper, you realize that is kind of absurd.
Yeah. I know you mentioned the kind of cold and hot therapy thing. When you were last here, you mentioned the cold shower thing, which I feel like this is becoming the Tim Ferriss podcast, but I got the idea of finishing your shower with like 30 seconds of cold shower from a Tim Ferriss podcast when he was on Brene Brown's show. And he kind of just said like he hasn't had a depressive episode in like 6 years. And one of the things that seems to have helped the most is the cold shock therapy. And he's like, if you want to try it out, guys, just turn the shower cold for 30 seconds a day and just see how it feels. And I'm amazed at how incredible that little practice has maybe changed my life. I'm not sure, there's a lot of factors, but I've really come to, I hate it every single day, but I've been doing it for about a year now. And I remember you mentioned it, and I even sent a clip to my girlfriend of you and Amanda saying, you were like, the shower thing, that's big. And I sent it to my girlfriend. I was like, see, these people get the shower thing. Because I'm always...
It is.
Yeah, I'm always going on and on about these crazy things like tweaking your shower habits. But
well, and it's like you talk about, it's that resistance. You don't want to do it, but it's pushing through that, telling yourself that, you're not just going to be driven by these emotions that say, no, I can't do this. It's a little scary, that you're taking control of the situation and just doing it. And it's kind of just pushing through the resistance, doing something a little bit uncomfortable. And that's how we grow. It's just one of those stressors that we grow from, just like hard workouts, just like, doing presentations, but it's not the stress, good or bad thing. It's how we handle it, and we can use it to grow, or we can just let it overtake us.
Yeah, and it sort of uses that muscle that says this is difficult or this is uncomfortable. And so like almost you turn the shower cold, it feels uncomfortable, but you did that. And then when you go to respond to that email where you're having to tell someone bad news, it's like, okay, well, this is sort of like just turning the shower cold, like, let's do it.
You just got to do it and just start. And once you start, it's usually not as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So speaking of the cold water thing, can you tell us a little bit about the sauna, ice bath, back and forth thing and how you developed that?
So, well, those doing it back and forth, one of the things I got from XBT, the way I like to do it is, personally, I start on the ice, but I would say majority of my clients like to start in the sauna. But we go up for about 3 minutes. As you get more adapted, longer than that. And then we go into the sauna for 10 to 15 minutes, just really getting uncomfortable. And we cycle through 3 times, ending on cold. Really, what's going on there, you're causing the blood to rush out to your extremities, back in your core. You're getting a cardiovascular boost, good for your immune system, good for helping inflammation. Body goes through some hormonal processes, basically killing off damaged cells throughout your body as you're doing this. Sauna's one of the best things you can do overall for your health and longevity. And it's a great way to incorporate it. And it's also that, doing something uncomfortable, the mental aspect of it. I love the sauna, I love the ice. It's not something I necessarily want to do every time I'm about to jump into it. I still have that resistance. But what you're teaching yourself is to how to handle stressful situations and how to deal with that. As everything I do comes back to the breath. It's a lot of how to breathe through that stressful situation. Because what happens, you hit the ice, we go fully under, it's 30 degrees, low 30s. First time people are in a complete panic, typically. It's a rapid breath in and out of their mouth, just breathing into their upper chest, almost hyperventilating. Teach them how to get that under control, then slowing the breath down. As you slow the breath down, your mind and your nervous system believes everything is safe, because if your breath is slow and under control, you cannot really be in too much of a threat. So it starts calming down, brings that blood into your core, starts protecting it. Everything, after about the first 30, 45 seconds, most people can chill out and relax, and we'll make it to 3 minutes. But I tell people it's not about staying in there the whole time. It's about staying in there longer than you want to and breaking that emotional reaction function of get me out of here right now. If that happens, just give me 3 more breaths. If you still want to get out for the 3 breaths, that's fine. We'll get you out. We'll take you into the sauna, warm back up, and we'll try again. And each round gets a little easier. By the end of it, you're floating, you're feeling good, and there's a reason that cultures have been doing this stuff for thousands of years, because you feel really good when you get done and sleep like a baby that night. Typically get pretty hungry after you do it. So it's a great way to work your body in a whole different way. And as I mentioned, when you're doing it with a group of people, you also, same thing. The sauna is kind of like the truth barrel. Everybody, lots of crazy stories have been told in the sauna. And you learn a lot about people in there.
Nice. How often do you do those exercises?
I do it twice a week.
Twice a week?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know they were always talking about the all-cause mortality benefits of...
Down like 40% with saunas and things like diabetes and controlling blood sugar, great with the sauna. So there's just a ton of physical benefits. And it's, the mental aspect, though, is I don't think you can really, put a price on that to understand what that's like. And I run it year round. So we do it Wednesdays and Fridays with small groups, do those out of my house. And then I'll travel around about once or twice a month doing them at studios or something on Saturdays.
Got the mobile sauna and the mobile ice bath.
Still got really the mobile stuff.
Yeah, I need to come do it because
definitely
I've never done it, and I would love to. Cause I know in psychology, to test pain tolerance, they have people stick their hands in a bowl of ice water. And so the idea that, you're submerging your whole body in what some would call a pain tolerance test has got to be crazy feeling, but also makes you think about those people on the Titanic. But
well, and, this time of year, it's almost the sauna is more difficult than the ice, because the sauna is not like normal. I mean, I get it up to 220, 230. So it's pretty hot. 10 minutes in there, you're smoking, and your heart rate will be up, 120 to 150. Most everybody who comes, we all, wears a Garmin or something. So kind of created workouts and put it on there so you can just see the heart rate gradually increase in the sauna. Then it's up to 120, 150, and then once you hit the ice, getting everything under control, drop it into the 40s. I got a couple people who can drop it into the 30s.
Wow.
So it's pretty amazing to see what happens to your cardiovascular system when you're in there.
That's incredible. I didn't know there were those extremes.
Yeah, it's a pretty big drop once you hit the ice and get under control and calm yourself down. Once you start calming down, your heart just slows dramatically.
We share an interest in kind of ultra marathons, and you're way more experienced than me. I've only done one 50-miler.
That you won.
Yeah, I did win it. Yeah, and as I told you last time, it put me in the hospital for like 3 days.
You got rhabdo, right?
I got rhabdo, yeah. So, and the crazy thing is I had trained so well for that I must have just pushed it a little too hard or something, but now I'm nervous to do another one because I'm like, well, I don't want to get rhabdo again, but I guess I just need to like drink more water and...
Yeah, don't hear of rhabdo too often in ultras. It's usually like something, some other type of events.
They were like, the doctor was like, usually the amount of protein in your blood would be like a unit of 2. He was like, yours is at 200,000. I was just like, oh God. So,
man,
yeah, my body was eating itself because I didn't consume enough calories. But so how many have you done?
Well, let's see. I did a 50-miler in Vermont this past year. I've done 25Ks. I've done a couple of things that wouldn't, I guess, I would consider them ultras, but they also involve like obstacle courses or something. So 24-hour events where I've done, 50 plus 55 miles, a few overnight things like that. And then I've helped crew Leadville a couple times and done a good portion of that. So I guess if you consider anything over a marathon as an ultra, I've done more than that, probably like 4 or 5 times.
And can you explain what Leadville is to the listeners?
Yes, Leadville is this 100-mile race in Colorado, which is Leadville, Colorado. They have a bike race, a running race, and it's the highest city in the U.S., 10,000 something, so it's like right at 2 miles. And it's really difficult. Like it's a 50-mile out and back, and you're getting 20,000 feet of gain. You got to do it in 30 hours to get a belt buckle. This year, the winner did it in like 16 hours and 18 minutes. We had a group of 4 that I was out helping. 3 of them completed it, and they completed it anywhere from 28 to like 29 hours.
Wow.
And most people are coming in towards the end. The guys who did it in 16, I mean, it was absolutely insane. And Leadville's it's pretty much like a mining town. I don't think there was much there until they started doing these races again. And it's a wild experience. They go out over this mountain, Hopes Pass, which we all, everybody, we had like 30 people out there just experiencing it, having fun and crewing with the different racers. And we went and hiked that one day, and just seeing them, what they pushed through to get there and to keep going. And, most of them wanted to quit at one point or another, and they kept going, and pushed through. And even if they didn't, cause it got pretty cold this past year. It was a lot colder than when we went 2 years ago. So it's just an amazing experience. Like all those ultras, it is a test of the mind and the body, and just kind of keep moving forward. A little like life, it's going to be ups and downs, highs and lows. Sometimes you're going to hate it, but then 30 minutes later, you might start feeling good again. So you never really know. And it's just kind of just keep going.
Do you train much for those when you do them?
The ones that I've done, yeah, I train a pretty good bit. I train, I'd say, a little bit different than most people who are just runners, because I like to do a whole lot. And if I run too much, it just crushes me. So the 50-miler that we did in Vermont this past year, which I only got 42 of it, it was probably the hardest race I've ever done. It was up at Joe DeSena, the guy who started Spartan Race. It was on his farm, and it was brutal. There was not a lot of aid out on there. Ran out of water, ran out of food, didn't really have much out there. And it was like a 50K loop, and then you came back and you're supposed to do 2 10-mile loops like on his land. and it was just absolutely brutal. So in training, I do a lot of weightlifting, CrossFit type stuff, but then long runs, just time on the body. Weekends, just getting out for 6 hour, just getting out and moving as much as you can. I mean, because really it's just about getting used to being on your feet and moving. Because I'm not at least running a lot of that stuff. Running down hills, running when it's flat. But if it's, climbing, I'm usually power hiking because I can do that just as fast as I could run it for the most part.
So what happened at mile 42?
I got cut off.
Okay.
So you couldn't go back out after like 6 p.m. And so I didn't make the cut to go back out on my last loop.
Okay.
And I was actually pretty glad. It was, I think I started cramping at about mile, maybe like 21 and cramped for the rest of the way. It's the first time I actually had like a full body cramp and I fell over and my Garmin thought I was getting attacked or something and started trying to do emergency calls to everybody. And luckily it was in the middle of the woods. There couldn't get the service off, but it was like I've never had like both my legs cramp up at the same time and just fall on the ground.
That's impressive that it sensed that.
Yeah, and it's I didn't realize it did that either.
Yeah,
but you fall down too hard when have a Garmin and it'll start trying to contact anybody in your emergency contact list.
Yeah. There's also an algorithm that's probably like, this guy's been running for 40 miles. If there's a sudden movement, he's probably hurt.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because I was curious because I feel like in training for marathons and ultras, the most annoying thing to me is just the time you have to put into running because there's no shortcuts if you have to, like I've run marathons on a treadmill at the gym and it's just like, because the weather will be so bad outside. If it's thunderstorms, it's like, well, I still got to get my miles in. And, there's only so many podcasts you can listen to.
That's right.
Before you start losing your mind.
Podcast books. Well, and it helps to have a group of people. Luckily, group of friends here that most of us like to do crazy stuff like that. And so there are at least people will join in. The fitness group that I'm with, that my brother-in-law started, DiversiFit, there's always somebody who is going to want to run. So a lot of times we'll do long runs together, and then people who are just out for a part maybe will come in and jump in and run like 5, 6 miles, 10 miles or something, while the people doing the event will be running 20 miles or something that morning. So it's nice to have some people to do it with you, because you do run out of podcasts and books and everything to listen to when you're on your own. Yeah. You get a lot of time to think.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do.
And the great thing about ultras, as opposed to like a road race, most everybody's got just their headphones in and they're just running and you're just zoned in. In an ultra, it's so long. You're in the woods. You're going to end up meeting and talking to people who you have no idea. No, you don't wear headphones. You really need to have kind of, support with you. So you're out there on the course, you meet somebody, you might run with somebody for, 5, 10 miles and then move on. They'll move on from you, and you just kind of meet different people, come and go as you're out there for so long. That's also great. It's a totally different community than road races.
Yeah. Do you follow the last man standing race?
Is that one of the ones where which one is that?
They do one like...
Is that the 4.2? Is that the big backyard?
4.2 mile loop, yeah.
Yeah.
And you have like 1 hour to do the 4.2 miles, and every hour on the hour they restart it, and it just goes until...
Is that the one that Courtney DeWalter, you know who she is?
I don't know.
She's like the baddest ultra runner around right now.
Oh, yeah.
She doesn't do anything really to train. She just goes out and runs. And
I heard her on Rogan.
I think. She was on Rogan recently because she's won a lot of those types of things. And that's also another thing with ultras. When you get over like 100 miles, women are pretty much the same as men. They can keep going, and they have a little bit better mental fortitude and pain tolerance. So you get into some of those, which I will never do a 200-mile race or even anything over that. Haven't even done 100 yet. So
I remember she was just like, yeah. And that's when like during the race, I started to go blind.
Yeah. I'm like, I think I gotta quit. Okay.
Yeah.
When I'm blind, I think I'm going to call it a day.
Yeah. But I always get it. There's some kind of allure to those long distance runs. I don't know if it gives you such a high that you start going back to it or if it's just such an exciting experience. I don't know what it is. I can't peg it down, but
yeah,
there's something about it.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The training can get tough, especially if you're doing a race in Memphis and you have to train through July, August, and the summer in Memphis can be tough.
Yeah, very hot. All right. Well, for all of those of you who are bored to death by ultra races, we'll move on. So, what book do you gift the most?
A great book out right now that I like to give people is Breathe by James Nestor's Lost Science of an Ancient Art. And it is great because it goes over a lot of the stuff that I talk about. But, he's a very good storyteller. He's also, part of the book is him doing experiments on himself. So he really dives in and he talks about a lot of the research going on. And it's easily digestible. I like that. Another book that I recently read that I'll probably start giving out a lot is called Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter, which is a really good one. Okay,
cool. What's Comfort Crisis about?
So about how we have become way too comfortable and we're just breaking down because of that. And you see a lot of our long-term health issues are because we don't stress ourselves. We don't stress our bodies. We're eating poor food. We are constantly in information overload. We're chronically stressed, and we just don't do enough to get out there. So he kind of goes on these excursions. One of them's like science, talks about like stillness, and then he gets out and does a lot of stuff out in nature. So it's getting uncomfortable because that's really where we find our growth is through pushing ourselves through that. Nobody's just going to be happy sitting around, laying on a couch, being a bump on a log, and creating adversity and overcoming that adversity is where we find a lot of happiness in life. So he's kind of goes through his whole. I think he's a professor, maybe in Las Vegas, but it's a very good book that he just put out.
Okay, cool. Have you ever seen the show Alone? It's like a survivalist show.
No.
My friend turned me onto it this year, and so I was like bored one night and turned it on, and they basically will put like 10 people 5 miles apart out in like the northern Canadian wilderness, and they just give them a bunch of cameras to shoot themselves, and they're stuck there for like 100 days. And if you make it 100 days, you get like $1 million. So they have like this great incentive, and you're allowed to have like 10 items, and you can kind of choose which one's like a bow and arrow, a tarp, certain things like that. And it is amazing watching what Homo sapiens can do and just how long they can survive eating like almost nothing. And it's like, they've been out there for like 2 months and they've just been eating like grass and stuff. And it makes you realize how resilient the human body is and how, like you said, how comfortable we have it as modern humans. 'Cause it blows my mind watching that show.
Yeah, and that comfort's made us sick. And when we don't push ourselves and stress ourselves, we don't adapt. And our body just starts shutting off normal processes because it's like, oh, well, I don't need this stuff anymore. And once that happens, you see things like the obesity epidemic, all the stress-related chronic issues, and all that comes from having everything at the touch of our hands. While it's great, we need to make sure we don't let it overcome us and make it too easy. That's why I think you see things like ultra racing, stuff like that has gotten so big in the last decade because people need to push themselves.
Yeah.
And when they start pushing themselves, for one, they realize how much more they think they can do than they ever believed they could do, and how much of it's innate inside. It's not the need to reach out for those, quick click through Instagram dopamine hits or, having everything delivered to us instantly. We can, I love that stuff too, but you got to make sure you balance it out with a little adversity.
What is one of the most kind of absurd beliefs, like getting into woo-woo land, that you believe that you're comfortable sharing?
I wouldn't say it's absurd, but how much we store in our body emotionally, how much we, small things that happen to us as we grow up, how that gets trapped into our subconscious, and we just overplay those subconscious stories throughout our lives. And unless we make them conscious, they just control everything, as Carl Jung said. And once you make these subconscious conscious, it'll just control your life. So how much, emotional responses get trapped in our body. I think, if you ever, when you do some of the transformative breath work, a lot of that kind of stuff can just come up. I've seen, 6'4", 250-pound pro athletes start crying after a long breath session. You have certain body work done, emotions, things like that can come out. And I believe all that stuff gets trapped in us. And especially in the Western world, they don't really talk about it as much. But there's a whole lot of good books that really dive into that stuff.
That was a great answer.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. What's something you might share with someone who's maybe at that point where they're in that career where you were, where they know they're not fulfilled, they know they're super stressed, but they might not know what to do next? Basically, someone who's kind of starting out. Mm-hmm. Is there any advice you'd share with them?
Don't get too overwhelmed. Just take it one step at a time and realize, at first it'll be difficult, especially if you're leaving and starting something new, but that there are going to be ups and downs, and just stick to it.
What trait do you recognize repeatedly in the quote-unquote successful people in your life and not in others?
Resilience, ability to, I'd say actually more like an anti-fragile, where it's the ability to grow and get better from stress, and, not allowing just a little bit of discomfort and difficult things to trap them. And when one bad thing's happened, to let that snowballing into something else, but learning how to grow from that stuff and move on.
Nice. What are you excited about right now?
Continuing to grow Symmetry, building that out, eventually having more coaches under me, and just continue to see that grow and evolve, as it's changed a lot over the last couple of years, going from more workshops, kind of in-person group classes, to a lot more one-on-one work. And I really love diving in, working one-on-one with individuals, and I'm excited to see that continue to develop.
And you've worked with some high-profile clients. I don't know, or can we go into that or no?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to talk about anybody I've done one-on-one, but I've had some, like Elizabeth Gilbert has gone out and repped a lot of my breath work. She's joined a lot of our virtual sessions, and she's been a big proponent, like in different stuff that she's been on in the past year, giving my breath work out there, along with Suleika Jawad, who's recently wrote a book. She's put it out there as well.
Cool. Yeah, I'm a big Liz Gilbert fan through her book Big Magic.
That's a good one.
I'm proud to be a degree of separation from you and and her right now. And so where can people find you, Taylor?
My website is www.symmetry.live. Instagram @symmetry.live as well.
Awesome.
Those are the easiest places.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in here and sharing all your insight and experience, because I had a blast talking to you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
And thank you all for listening. I know we forgot to get to the breathing exercise we promised, so I have pulled the recording from his Instagram and inserted it into the end of this episode. So if you keep listening, it's there. And it's sort of branded as a replacement for a cup of coffee, this breathing exercise. So it can give you a nice boost of energy in the afternoon, which we all need. So don't forget to check out my Hit the Ground Running newsletter and our Patreon at patreon.com/ideally. We'll see you next week. And here is Taylor.
Hey, this is Taylor bringing you a breathing routine you can do for a nice jolt of energy. We're going with 30 rapid breaths in and out of the nose, driving it with a diaphragm. Sounds like this. Equal in, equal out. Think about a puppy dog panting, but just close your mouth. At the end of the 30th breath, take a big breath in, hold 10 to 15 seconds, and repeat that for 3 rounds. Try it out instead of grabbing an extra cup of coffee, and let me know what you think.